this episode of Voice of the Sea, we're talking about the growing opportunities for communities to formally manage their natural resources and preserve local traditions. We talk with Luna Kekoa from the Hawaii Division of Aquatic Resources about community-based subsistence fishing areas and when this new designation is the right tool to use. Many communities, like Hāʻena on the North Shore of Kauaʻi, are looking to community-based management to provide opportunities for improving social health and resource productivity. The Hāʻena effort is led by Hui Makaʻainana o Makana, a nonprofit group that formed in 1998 to care for the Hāʻena watershed and community. The Hui worked with state agencies to establish the first community-based subsistence fishing area in Hawaii in 2015. Pelika Andrade, Hawaiʻi Sea Grant extension agent, who has been working with the Hui through her Na Kilo ʻāina program and is also a Hui Community Member, talks story with Hui leaders Presley Wann, Keliʻi Alapaʻi, and Emily Cadiz. Then, Luna Kekoa shares some of the plans for community management across Hawaii and gives tips for getting involved to take care of coastal resources in your place. Maybe we first just start off talking about what is a community-based subsistence fishing area?
Community-based subsistence fishing areas was a law created to protect traditional and cultural practices in areas around the state. And these areas have come from communities where there's certain fishing practices that they have in their area that they're just like, we want to protect this way of fishing. Other places, like, we want to be able to protect the practice of us being able to subsist from our resources in these areas. It's really focusing on protecting those cultural and traditional practices of the area, whether it's feeding yourself, practicing harvesting in certain ways, kapus that were set for certain seasons. So there's different ways that they managed in the past, and we're trying to incorporate those in contemporary management. In Hāʻena, right, they created a rule that says if you want to harvest octopus or he'e, you got to use a stick that's a foot or less, or your hand, because that's how they harvest over there, right? So they don't want people coming over there with spears and poking the octopus. Like, you tickle it out of the hole, and kind of that was the practice. Things like that is not saying that we're going to stop fishing, right? We're not saying you cannot fish here, but if you're going to go to areas to fish, you should fish like those people fish in those areas to continue those practices.
If there's a lot of snorkelers in the water, it's my understanding that they can influence the behavior of the baby fishes and disrupt the nursery areas if you have too much human use, even if they're not actually taking something out. And so are those types of considerations, like just the volume of human traffic in an area, part of these community areas?
Yes. So in the community areas, they have these rest areas like pu'uhonua. They say, like, this is our nursery. And so they realize that these areas are important and that they themselves wouldn't go in it, like, for anything. The community said, like, that's an area that is kapu for us. Like, it's going to be preserved for the fish. That's for them to grow. And so that's one thing that we see in these community-based proposals, is that they're proposing take areas within their areas that are the nurseries. We're stopping fishing, boating going through the area. Like in Hāʻena had a boat race or canoe race. So they paddled on the outside of it going down. And then when they turned around, there was a lot of space on the inside for them to pass on the inside if they needed to, because it was rough on the outside, right? It was thought about how to make it so that it was inclusive of other uses, but it could still serve the purpose as a nursery, as a pu'uhonua for the fish.
How do people know what those regulations are, and how are they enforced? Or, like, if I go to Hāʻena and I want to go fishing, who do I talk to about that?
They're on the state website. You can look on the Division of Aquatic Resources website. But you can also, there's communities, fishers out there. You can just ask. That's one of the things, at least the way we were raised, is like, before you go to a place, you ask, you go fishing with somebody from the area, right? Like, if you are going to fish, like, find the people who fish there, ask them, hey, like, what's this place? And kind of just talk story to get to know before you throw in your pole or before you jump in with your spear.
What is your role with these community-based subsistence fishing areas?
It starts off by just listening, right? Like they're interested in certain things in their area, whether it's protecting limu, whether it's protecting opihi, certain fish species, lobsters, whether it's closing them for certain seasons, being like, hey, we're seeing them spawn during these times, like we want to protect them. It ranges for different areas on what they're interested in. And so really the first thing is listening to these areas and be like, okay, if that's their concern, here's a couple of tools in our toolboxes. Like CBSFA is just one of them. We have statewide rules, we have fishery management areas, we have different tools in our toolbox that we can use to help people figure out how do they best manage what fits for their areas, right? And so community-based subsistence fishing areas are just one of those tools in our toolbox that we can bring out if it's like a cultural or a traditional practice that they're trying to protect, or that they're trying to protect their ability to subsist in these areas. So that's what this tool is really good for. It takes time, but areas like this can work, especially when you get the community involved. So we're looking at CBSFAs. I think you mentioned like Hāʻena and their 5-year review, right? This is the first time that DAR is going to go and review rules that they made. And so it's a first step for us to figure out like, what does this process look like if we find something that needs to be changed? Like, what is that threshold? What is that indicator that says that, okay, we need to switch? Like, what are we switching to? There's a lot of things that are first time. So we get to like kind of create these new paths and options of how we can work with communities and what that looks like. So right now we have plans. It's bringing those plans to life.
Hāʻena this is the land of my ancestors right here. Our modern day Hui Makaʻainana or Makana are primarily made up of descendants of this place.
And what kind of protection are you trying to do here?
Well, we're just trying to protect, restore our traditional and cultural practices. We're taro farmers. Now we're taking care of our kai. We also are up in the mountains. We take care of our upper preserves, carrying on that tradition of taking care of our place. It's a kuleana.
Why was that something important to you, Uncle, to do that?
First and foremost was feeding my family, and what really made me really revisit my ancestral practices here, especially regarding fishing, was going through 2 hurricanes, and it made us think about sustainability. And then I started thinking about the Hawaiian say maho'oi. Yeah, this is our icebox. This is my icebox on this side. Maybe a handful of times I've ever gone and fished anywhere else. It's always been in this area. I just grew up that way. We stayed in our own area and fished that way, and take care of our place, malama the place that we, and keeping our eyes on what's going on. We had an experience right after 2018 flood, of biblical proportions down here. We had 50 inches of rain. The loie had survived. And when we came down here one day, like a couple days after the flood, walking the reef, and he's going, look at the fish, just like you could, within a couple of days,
Our kupuna said there were more fish than today, but we also know that the flood happened and then all of a sudden there is fish. Within 3 days, it wasn't because of fishing, it was because no tourism. We're getting fish in here that are not 3 days old. That's 20 years old, so they never were gone. There's other impacts that are affecting fisheries outside of just fishing. It has everything to do with the 200,000 tourists that walk the shoreline every day, and so fish can't come in close. And as soon as we removed that component from it, we still had fishing going on when the floods happened, because now we had to feed Hāʻena.
Yeah.
We still had plenty of fish.
This place was getting loved to death. We were able to, work with the state and get the numbers down 2/3. It's just a better experience for everybody, first and foremost, and for the visitors. You're playing with our food. That's why it's important to take care of our place. A place. Anybody can find a place that you like and take care of it, And you come down and spend a little bit of time down here. It's more than that. It's a spiritual level. A lot of our Hui members, we don't all live down here. And so when we come here, It's spiritual.
It's something that's special.
So you grew up fishing here?
Grew up fishing,
a lot?
yeah.
With who? You had kupuna you fish with, or?
I had kupuna. Now it's my turn to teach the young ones.
Your fishing technique, majority of the time in Hāʻena is
Throwing net.
Is throw net. So there's certain specific species that you're going after, and that develops the ono, right, of what your family and what you want to eat. So how is the rules that you had come up with? How does that support that productivity, and how does that support ensuring that it's continually abundant?
My practice is in throwing net. I don't carry bag when I go and fish. I don't need to carry one bag. I go throw my net one time, and that's it.
Get what you get.
That's all I need. Take what you need, let it go. Let the rest, you can get more. We catch people doing illegal stuff, we educate them, yeah? We educate them in a nice way to make them understand it's illegal.
You're saying in a nice way. It's not because you're trying to be nice, it's you have to build trust with your community.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to understand going into community engagements like the Hui is. It's not just like, we're not just doing the work. There's trust and there's relationships. There's layers and layers of things that we can't put on paper and we can't put into a law.
We as the farmers, we as the fishermen, we the ones that need to set a good example for our community and get their trust in us to see what we're doing. And when they see improvements, you get them in your back. Then they're going to see the whole picture. You know what we're trying to do.
Which benefits?
Benefits everybody. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, how much effort, if you look at like how much effort goes into tending to lo'i, how much effort goes into cutting grass, and then how much effort goes into this outreach and talking to people? Like what is, give us a real honest like example.
I work more hard doing this than my regular job. I tell you.
It's a lot.
We as the Hui work so hard to get us where we are today. I mean, 20 years, easy. You know, working on this CBSFA, years.
Are you happy with where it is and where it's leading?
You know, I am very glad that we have this CBSFA. What else we're going to turn to? It's helping us. It's helping us.
Yeah. If there's some like really great lessons that you want to pass on to other communities that want to embark on this same journey, what would they be?
I would say, don't ever say no can, because can. If you folks have it in your heart, if folks really want to take care of you guys' place, can.
The University of Hawaiʻi Sea Grant College program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaiʻi Sea Grant.
Next, Hui Makaʻainana o Makana Program Coordinator Emily Cadiz has been preparing integrated research that combines holistic and scientific monitoring to provide a report on the effectiveness of this CBSFA for their upcoming 5-year review.
There's this really great opportunity that we talk about. This is the first report of its kind.
Yes.
So we can set the precedence of what that report looks like.
It's super awesome because Hāʻena is the first community to go through this process, so there's a lot of room to set a precedence. A few weeks ago, we had a meeting with DLNR and the DAR Kauaʻi staff and just talking about, okay, this 5-year report is due soon. What's it gonna look like? And we shared, yes, we're super grateful for all our UH partnerships working with us to research and monitor certain areas in Hāʻena for us for the past 5 years for this CBSFA report. It's been so much more for the community that we want to also include in this report on behalf of the Hui, how many programs have we had, how many people have we involved in these programs, how many youth have been involved in these programs, specifically from this community, outside communities, outer islands, how many conferences and education and outreach we've presented in. We've gone national, we've gone international with some of the work we've done. Intergenerational knowledge, how is that being passed around? Subsistence, how have we noticed subsistence fishing increase, especially when the April 2018 floods came through, when COVID has hit. We've noticed an increase in subsistence fishing that's happened in this area. So really creating a very expansive report that's this is how Hui Makaʻainana Makana assesses resource health, when it was just trying to center around monitoring and community-based fisheries. It turned into something so much more, where I started helping Uncle with education programs and community work days and family involvement. It actually opened up my understanding in holistic health and wellness of a community that yes, the fisheries is a huge focus right now because of the CBSFA movement, but these families, this community health it's like these concentric circles almost. This is just such a small piece of all of this that contributes to health and wellness. We've taken it upon ourselves to create internship programs and get our youth involved in helping us analyze and report on the 5-year report, and getting our lineal descendants, our youth from this community, high school students, recent graduates involved in the process. This is something that is of value to this community. It is important for these youth to be a part of that, because that's at the end what we're trying to do. It's not just producing a 5-year report, that's great, but we're looking at 10, 20, 30 years down the road in ensuring that our youth are learning these things, are a part of the process, so that we're investing in something that's gonna come full circle.
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
Next, Luna Kekoa shares how communities can work with the Division of Aquatic Resources to protect their own local areas. Going forward in the future, say 10, 20, 30 years, what would your vision of success be like?
So I think that this model of going to the communities can be done at a bigger scale. It shouldn't just be for traditional cultural practices. We have other communities that we're working with who are interested in protecting their areas, and it's not based upon traditional or customary practices. It's based upon the fact that there's a threat, and they see it as a solution that hey, if we create some regulations that eliminate this one threat, we may be able to help our fishery. Communities are how do we work with you folks to do this? Opening up to more communities is one of the things I see in the future. And that's why this 5-year review is important. We can hear from enforcement what they're seeing, we can hear from community what they're seeing, and then we can look at the data and be wow, the data is showing this, enforcement is showing this, and this is the community perspective. So now we have 3 different things going on, and we can see where they align, whether it's that things are working, or we can see the areas that need improvement, but we can start to see things from a bigger picture. And that's just DLNR focus. We can go to county, right? Because then county owns up Mauka, forestry, there's state parks right there, right? So it gets bigger than that. But if we start with the core and have the values here, we can grow those values out to whoever else we include. Be this is how we're playing. Come and eat, have some mana pool. We're going to talk about the situation and then leave with a solution.
So we've talked about other future areas that are ripe or ready for new types of management. And can you call out any of those locations that are maybe in the process?
We have Hāʻena on Kauaʻi right there already 5 years in. We have Mo'omomi, which is in the process. We just had a public hearing for them. And so right now DAR is going through those testimony and kind of reviewing them and figuring out what the next step will be. And then we have 2 more communities in the process. So we have Kipuhulu on Maui, and then we have Miloli'i on Hawaii Island, South Kona. The Lahaina Polanui area in Maui has expressed interest in looking at some type of management. The other one is Mauna Lua Bay on Oahu is looking at creating some regulations. And then we have other communities that have expressed interest as like West Hawaii communities, more North communities in the Kona side. These are coming from the community and we're trying to listen to what they're saying.
How can people in other communities get involved, or people in the communities that you mentioned, how can they help?
You can email us at cbsfa@hawaii.gov and just let us know that you're interested in taking care of your area. But that's kind of how it starts. We don't feel that we should be going to areas and be like, hey, we're thinking about CBSFA over here. Like, it's supposed to be community-based. It's got to come from the community. We're going to be working with communities. They're going to be like, yeah. But a lot of people are wondering, like, what about what we did? How are we making sure, right? You can go and trailblaze like we do in Pola, but you got to come back and re-back the trail every now and then for make sure you can still walk, right? And I think Hāʻena is the first one that DAR is going to do. And it's going to set that first stone on this path of, like, how do we make sure that it's working? And if it's not working, how do we change it so it can start to address those issues?
Is there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't touch on yet?
Our entry-level Dokyo Academy, you heard about that?
No.
So it was like everyday people like you and me who applied. There's 180 pukas that they said that they would take. So they took 180 applications. It filled up in like a couple hours. And then they went through like the screening process. We ended up with 12 or 13 of these officers. So they were just like hunters, fishers, like lifeguards, everyday people that wanted to become protectors of the resource as Dokyo officers. So we ran them through an academy where they became like law enforcement officers and resource enforcement officers. So now instead of having like police officer mentality showing up, you have like hunter and fisher, like being like, oh, but that's good. Oh, and what is this guy doing over here with this kayak? Like, what is that, right? So it's a different mentality of the officers. They already know how to fish. They know what to look for, and they got the red flags ready. So when they see it, it's just like, they don't need to go bother. They can talk story with all these fishers because they know that's fine, but it's the ones that they can notice is like, so that is changing a lot of perspectives on Dokyo side. So we're trying to encourage that and get more of those type of people involved. I remember growing up and my uncle then being like, oh yeah, you leave all the babies and you shoot the bigger ones, right? And now you're listening to uncles and like scientists as they're talking about like the big ones make the most eggs, right? They produce the most. So it's this new mentality of like, okay, you leave the babies, you leave the big ones, and you shoot in between size so that you're taking from this middle population. But once they pass that certain size, they become the reproducers and like putting back into the system, right? That's something that we weren't taught when we were young, but now like that I'm teaching my kids, I can share that with them, right? Certain species, this is happening. So you got to know your species and know what they're doing so that you know when to take them appropriately. And that's just getting our connection back to the resources, right?
Restoring the interconnectedness of people, place, and resources benefits families, communities, and even visitors. Participate in a community workday, join a community organization, and work to preserve and restore your own local resources. Watch Voice of the Sea anytime online at voiceofthesea.org. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.